Describe a little bit what you found, those surprise walks when you found the place your uncle had built, and the scene like that. I think it's so evocative. I want to hear you talk about it a little bit.
Well, the book is 6 walks, and in order for there are 6 walks that I invite the reader to take with me, and in order for the reader to appreciate what is being lost as a result of the incursion of the settlers on this precious land, the reader has to appreciate the land and its beauty. And so the first walk, I take the reader through the land before the Jewish settlement began. And I describe the land as it must have been experienced by my great-grandfather, and describe the terracing and the vernacular architecture in the form of what was called qasr, which was a small agricultural stone-built structure.
Let me just interrupt for a minute, because what we're showing on the screen are before and after scenes from different scenes in the West Bank. I just want to show them. This is what it was, and it's what it was. That's Jebel Abu Ghnaim, and this is what it is today. Literally the mauling of the terrain. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I just wanted to explain to the viewers.
I'm very glad to see that you can show the viewers what it was and how it has become. Yeah. So it's extremely depressing to see this land that had been left more or less untouched, and whatever ways in which it was changed, the landscape was in a small way and in an organic way, and then all of a sudden, through the possibility that settlers have of huge amounts of money, they knock it out, they flatten the hills and create these roads that do not go with the contours of the land, and bring in almost 500,000 settlers to live on the land.
With real damage to the life that's there. I want to read a couple of passages and then ask you to also comment on them, and then later on read a few yourself. This is one of the ones I think sort of sets the tone for me of the whole thing. It's the biography of these hills in many ways was my own. The victories and failures of the struggle to save this land are also my own. But the persistent pain at the failure of that struggle would in time be shared by Arabs, Jews, and lovers of nature anywhere in the world. All would grieve as I have at the continuing destruction of an exquisitely beautiful place. And then this one, how unaware many trekkers around the world are of what a luxury it is to be able to walk in the land they love without anger, fear, or insecurity, just to be able to walk without political arguments, without fear of losing what they've come to love, without the anxiety that they'll be deprived of the right to enjoy it. You can't go for walks anymore.
Well, the last time I went for a walk, which was a week ago, I went to the same place that I described in the last walk in the book, the 6th walk. And I met a settler from a settlement just 10 miles away from where I live in Ramallah. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm walking." At first, I thought he thought I was a settler who had lost his way and he was trying to help me. And so I said, "No, I live here. I live in Ramallah." He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Walking." He said, "I'm going to call the army." And then I told him, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" And he said, "Unlike you, I live here." And then he added, "I really live here." So as far as he is concerned, the land belongs to him, and I'm an intruder. And of course, the settlers are armed. This is not the first encounter. I've had many encounters with the settlers and the army. And it can be very dangerous because many people have been shot by settlers in the hills.
The settlements, so intrusive, and by design intrusive. I remember when in '78 I first wrote a piece about the Drobel's plan. And described it in a pamphlet. I was called paranoid and an anti-Semite. But they implemented it.
Of course.
The design was to cut it into ribbons so that it could never be a contiguous whole again. I want you to read this next passage. It's item number 3 on the list of quotes that we pulled out from the book. And if you would, it's up on the screen.
Yeah. The settlement, shall I read from the screen?
Yeah.
The settlement master plan viewed our presence here as a constraint and was aimed at preventing are undesirable development. By creating new human rights, by creating new human settlements where none existed, connecting them with roads and isolating existing ones, it would not only strangle our communities, but also destroy this beautiful land, and in a matter of a few years, change what had been preserved for centuries.
The question, I guess, that comes to me is, when we look at the settlements and we look at the wall and we look at the roads, there was a time when Palestinians thought it would all be reversible. The two-state solution is based on the concept that it is reversible. What was built could always be taken down. Is it reversible? Is it possible to construct a state in this area at this point, given what's been put there?
I think that it has gone so far that dividing the land in the way that we thought previously and after 1967 does not seem feasible anymore. But at the same time, I must add that what is happening, what the wall and the isolation of the Palestinian settlements and the dividing of this tiny piece of land is also not feasible. The continuity of this is not feasible. Human beings cannot live in this way. They cannot live isolated in ghettos and take it and not be able to take a walk in the hills around their house. It's also not feasible. So what does this make it out to be? I don't know in the political terms.